every time you tell somebody what we do, it's like, hey, we're trying to take group travel and think of like an Expedia.com or Booking.com, but think of it for group. And we're trying to make it so that you can book group travel online. And everyone's like, the first thing everyone says, so you can't do that today?
Insane, right?
You can't book group travel online. And it's not, you can buy a car online, you can buy a house online, but to book 10 or more rooms online at any hotel, can't do that. That sounds ludicrous.
Hello, nerds. Today we're getting tech heavy on the pod. Things are changing in the thread of hotel technology, which is very exciting for the world of group travel. I have a great guest today that's going to break it all down for us. We have Tim Flors. He is the SVP and Chief Customer Officer at Groups360. And before I introduce you properly, I'm going to give a little background about the company he works for that's changing the game. So, group travel, for decades, has been stuck in the old days of fax machines and phone calls. So like, say you're a meeting planner and your client wants to book 30 rooms at a hotel for a team offsite. Instead of booking online, like a normal person living in the modern world, you actually have to submit an RFP and call group sales over the phone. So the pandemic forced a lot of layoffs in group sales operations, meaning your call will either go unanswered or that RFP just sits stagnant for a really long time. For those of you who don't know what an RFP is, it stands for Request for Proposal. So basically, a client will say, hey, company, will you do X, Y, and Z for me? I have this business opportunity for you. And then the vendor responds. Or they don't. But I have a feeling that this decade will be the last for booking group space over the phone. And I'll let him, crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed, right? I'll let him give you the full overview of the company, but I'll put it in Connor and layman's terms really quick. So Groups360 is a startup tech company out of Nashville that seems to be on a tear for the last 18 months. Their goal is to make booking meetings simple and easy for both the meetings consumer and the hotelier. So before we jump into things Groups360 and what you guys do, I kind of want to learn a little bit about your personal business as an operator. I know that some founders really enjoy different team sizes. And for the listeners in startup land, there are a few stages a company goes through in their journey. So stage 1 is ideation, just a small team working on an idea. Stage 2 is product market fit, where you have a product in market, little revenues coming in, and your team size may be around 100 to 50 people. And then there's stage 3, the post-revenue growth stage, focused on expansion and scale, which I know you guys have accomplished. You have offices in London and Singapore. Before we really get into it, like, where is the sweet spot? What stage in team size has been the most fun for you?
Hey, Conrad, thank you again. And thank you, Kenny, for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That's a super hard question. So, like, I have a 7 and a 5-year-old baby girl. And if you were to ask me along the way, like, which one was your favorite age? Was it when they were 2, when they were 3? And every year I would say, Conrad, my favorite year was 2. My favorite year is 3. Whatever year I'm in, I always think that's the most fun. And I'd probably say the same thing for the startup, to be honest with you. Just even you talking, just going back to like being on a whiteboard and us having literally PowerPoint presentations of what we were trying to design, and just literally there's PowerPoints with shapes on it, to where we're at today. Each stage was fun for what it was, right? Yeah. The product market fit was super exciting because it was us spending a lot of time thinking that we knew the answer, but then also talking with consumers about, hey, how do you want to buy? Let's not talk about how you want hotels to sell to you, how you want CVBs and DMOs to sell to you. How do you actually want to buy? That was super exciting. It was also super exciting to receive an investment and to also start growing the company at scale. And that's really where we're at now. And that's been hyper exciting, right? Being able to have employees all throughout the globe and to work in that level. So my answer is really a non-answer, Conrad, because I'm going to say right now is the most exciting time, year 9 in. And I hope if we do this again a year from now, I'll say it's year 10 when we're doing this, that it's the most fun and most exciting time.
When it all comes into fruition, that's got to feel so good.
Yeah.
Thinking about that question, I asked that question to my dad a few years ago. And before I was even done with the question, I was like, what age was the favorite year? He's like, 6. 6 was the best. I was like, gee, so I wasn't fun when I was 18 or when I was an adult at 30 and starting a company. Yeah, no, 6. 6 when I was just, just the right age to look up to dad and think he was the best. And yeah, but he knew instantly. He was like 6.
That's awesome. See, mind you, I'm in that sweet spot. Yeah, I'm in a sweet spot, right? I'm 7 to 5. Mind you, I've got 2 girls, so they're not teenage girls yet. So I'm sure my answer will change as life goes on. Because right now they like their dad, so it's great. I enjoy it. Yeah, all the same reasons why your dad made the same answer.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. I always, when anyone says like, what age would you go back to? I always say 7. 7. I'm like, I'm old enough to have a personality and know what's going on, but young enough to where people still let you get away with everything.
So true. So true.
Okay, question number 2. So since I'm new to tech, I'm curious how something like this gets off the ground. And since you're a legend over there and have been a part of the company since day one, can you give me the backstory of Groups360 from its early days as a startup to now being a multi-million-dollar company?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, the early days, I mean, we were all former hoteliers. So the majority of us started in the hotel business, and a lot of us came from Gaylord Hotels, which is known for purely focus on meetings and conventions. And so when we left there and we want to start Groups360 about 9 years ago, the thought was truly, how do we just make it simpler and easier for meeting and event planners? So literally what you just said as our kickoff is where we started literally almost 10 years ago of saying, how is it easier? And so when we got there, that was our mission. Our mission was just super simple, make meetings easier. Now, mind you, from there, a lot's evolved since then, right? We've learned a lot along the way. The really funny thing is that we created a poster board. It was probably year 1.5, year 2 in the company. We still have it here in our office today. So now we're on our 3rd office now. But everything that we have on that diagram is still relevant. It's either things we have already accomplished or things that are still on our near and future term roadmap to accomplish. So
that's cool.
So much of it has remained the same and consistent. And a lot of it is from us growing from where we were at then to where we're at now has really been about being in the right time in the right place and having what I believe is still a really unique idea. And it wasn't really that unique because every time you tell somebody what we do, it's like, hey, we're trying to take group travel and think of like an Expedia.com or Booking.com, but think of it for group. And we're trying to make it so that you can book group travel online. And everyone's like, the first thing everyone says, so you can't do that today?
Insane, right?
You can't book group travel online? And it's not, you can buy a car online, you can buy a house online, but to book 10 or more rooms online at any hotel, can't do that. That sounds ludicrous. And so for us, it's been that evolution of how do we make that more the norm, that all of a sudden it seems normal for a consumer as well as for a hotel to put that inventory up for sale. And luckily enough, we've had partners along the way, hotel partners along the way who said, you know what, we agree with that philosophy. It is time to make a change. And so again, with the announcement of just a few weeks ago with Marriott bringing on not only sleeping rooms and meeting space, but also catering and equipment. So you can book your AV, you can book your AM break, your PM break all online. It was truly industry changing. And it took a really creative leader like Marriott International to say, this is important to our consumers, so it's important to us. And that's how we want to be able to present our products.
Yes. Congratulations.
So,
that's huge.
Oh, thank you. And really, congratulations to Groups360 and to Marriott, right? I mean, Marriott is the largest hotel company in the globe. And for them to recognize that this is where consumers are going was truly a remarkable thing for them as well. So it was a great team effort. Truly, it was probably about a year plus in the making to make all those things happen.
So yes. Cool. So speaking of that, let's give a little bit of context. I want to go back to 2019 and maybe even before that. You guys received a $50 million investment from Marriott, Hilton, Accor, and IHG, who are monster companies. These are the absolute big dogs. And if it's not too cheeky to ask this, how did you get these mammoth corporations to invest millions of dollars? Like, obviously, you were able to show them the potential of the platform. But how did that happen?
I mean, we're nice people. Who wouldn't just give us $50 million? I mean,
come on.
I mean, right? No, I mean, interesting, right? We were already an existing company prior to the investment. And I think they saw our mission and where we were going. And before the investment, we already had a working and operating product. So we were already sending out RFPs to hotels, like you mentioned earlier, right? The archaic old RFP way.
Right.
I'm going to send an RFP, wait a handful of days for a response to come back. So we still offer that today because that's just what a majority of hotels still have to offer.
Yeah.
But I think the brand saw this and saw a unique opportunity, because the reason why Expedia.com and Booking.com exist is that when consumers like the three of us want to go book travel, it's hard to go to Marriott.com, go to Hilton.com. And if I want to go to Orlando this weekend and we want to go hang out and go to Disney, that I don't want to go to 5 or 6 different websites to look at inventory and pricing for each individual brand. I want to go to one spot and look at it all together in one location.
Right.
It doesn't exist for group today. And so we already had the game plan to really get there. I think by us showing that to them, they saw like, okay, I can see they're trying to do what happened in transient now in the group space. And so truly, I think it was, you go back to product market fit, there's also the product timing of everything. I think it was the right time of just hotels already starting to have capabilities and some APIs that we could actually consume to be able to get this type of inventory. And then to have that thought leadership to say, this is the organization that we agree with. And again, I think us being former hoteliers and understanding their pain points and what they're doing, not only at a headquarter level, but also on a property level, helped as well.
Right.
All right. I have a question about stakeholder management. So we have a small board and, the investor meetings and all that stuff, managing different personalities. How do you guys manage? You obviously have the big 4 hotel brands. Is it difficult to manage different interests? Because the flavor of Groups360 could be a little bit different from platform to platform and the capabilities. And then one of the big issues in marketplace businesses is, who ranks first? Who's above who? And you guys have a really slick product and a scoring system that existed way before you got the investment. Because I was like early user back in the day with Kemp and Paul in the office. And So could you share about just how you manage maybe different interests? And I would assume that, they probably all have some kind of like say, and you collaborate and you work with them. So I would love to learn a little bit more about kind of walking that tightrope.
No, really good question. So, right, it makes it interesting having 4 competing brands, right? And obviously we take antitrust and things like that incredibly seriously.
Sure.
Especially at a board meeting level where everyone's in one room. But that's the unique thing. We are an operating company that they have guidance and insight on, but we run the company day to day. So they're not making strategic level decisions at that level, but they're saying, hey, we agree with the mission and where you guys are heading, and the budgets and things of that nature. When we talk about their individual interests, you mentioned something interesting, Kenny, about our platform. And our platform is truly brand agnostic, and it's very meeting planner driven. So unlike other legacy sourcing tools, we don't offer any paid placement on GroupSync, meaning that Marriott, Hilton, IHG, and Accor couldn't say, hey, I just gave you $50 million. Obviously, I'm going to be ranked above the non-investor chains, right? And that's not the case at all. They knew this going into it, and it's hard, right? I mean, Kenny, you both have started businesses. It was hard when we were first starting off, when we had hotel chains that were open to giving us marketing dollars to have them listed first.
Yeah.
And we continually declined them and said, you know what, that's not our mission. We don't want to be the company that just has the highest paid placement being the top. We want that to be the most relevant for the actual user. So our whole search is based on users' preferences and their priorities. And so by the 4 investing brands, by them giving us $50 million, it did not change one thing about our search algorithm. You can go in today, Kenny. I'm sure you might still have your access. Log in today. You'll see other hotel brands that are ranked higher higher than those 4, based upon your user preferences and your priorities for either that market or on property hotel amenities. And so none of that has changed, nor none of it will change, regardless of our ownership structure. That's just fundamental to what we do.
Yeah, it actually kind of solidifies the mission, and it almost in some respect, although turning away the first kind of check that you get, it's like, oh, it's like, but once you cement that, it does fortify the mission in the sense that we're like, hey, this is how we operate. These are our stakeholders. And then it makes it more transparent, which is what I really like about your platform. I took Connor through a little spin today. And so Connor was like, oh, wow, this is this is slick. So I showed her like the average hotel room nights and the occupancy and how planners use it to make good choices. And I'm a product guy, so I see it, and I see that like transparency is very evident inside of the product, and which was really cool to see. And then Connor was kind of like blown away. She's like, "Oh, this is really useful and cool." So
awesome! I'm glad you got to walk through it.
Oh, I was loving it.
I mean, our whole
it's really impressive, and it's super user friendly, super smart recommendation engine. It was kind of like blowing my mind. I wish I could use that to book my own trips. How simple it was.
Hey, you can just bring nine or more friends with you. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do
for my birthday party.
Yeah, I mean, and so the transparency thing is key, right? Just the rate data that you're mentioning, Kenny.
Yeah.
Even from the RFP side of what we do, our whole goal is the trust and confidence of the end user consumer. The moment I start giving them paid placements, and the moment we start not giving them market-driven data and there's any bias, that's the moment I lose the trust, and we lose the trust and confidence of that meeting planner, right? They'll say, "Hey, I'll just go source somewhere else. I'll just call them direct. It'll be easier, it'll be better," and it can't happen. So we're very focused on that, of just providing a user-driven approach, again, solely based on their preferences and their priorities, and providing as much information to them as possible to make the most educated decision for their meeting and event.
Keeping on the track of the Group Sync platform, can you elaborate on how this tool simplifies like the task list of a travel organizer?
Oh, totally. And absolutely. And when we think travel organizer, just know that when we look at this everything from the person who does this for their full-time job. They have meeting planners somewhere in their title. Also to the soccer mom and soccer dad who obviously anyone in this group, once they know you're anywhere in the travel industry, they're going to say, "Oh, Kenny, obviously you're going to take care of the hotel rooms, right? Because you're the one guy who knows hotels."
Yeah.
Once you're in this business, you're that person, right? So we look at all of those people as planners, whether you're an event planner by trade or not. And so our whole goal is, again, to say, how do we make that either RFP process easier or make that direct booking happen? And so what we want to do, like Kenny had mentioned, even in the RFP process, we're going to take your preferences and your priorities. So everything from the weather you might want in the destination to the on-property amenities, like maybe you want a pool on property, maybe you want to have a spa on property. And we allow you to prioritize those different preferences. And we then rank those markets and hotels based upon what you had entered. And you have complete flexibility to change that at any point along the shopping journey. And so our goal is to say, most planners have no idea what the pricing is. And that's why there's this huge RFP spam that exists, meaning I'm a meeting planner. I want to go to hang out in Orlando this weekend. The only way I could figure out what the group rate is for Orlando is I got to fill out a form, send it off, wait 2 to 3 days, and fingers crossed, I get some responses back to see what those rates are going to be in that market. It's just super archaic and it doesn't make any sense, right? And a lot of meeting planners, especially the non-professional planners, I know we're all very familiar with Orlando, they don't understand the seasonality of the business. So they're like, "Oh gosh, I went in August, I received X rate," and they think they can come back in January and receive the same rate. It's like, no, actually August is the slow time in Orlando because it's hot and nobody really wants to be there in Orlando. However, January, everyone wants to be in Orlando in January, February, and March. And so our tool provides the educational element around that to tell a planner, hey, if you're looking in January, the rates are going to be higher. You don't have to wait to go talk to a hotel. I can tell you that before you've even done that search. And so we do that both on the RFP side and obviously now with our direct booking integrations that if you can see real-time live pricing and you can book it now 365, 24/7. Anytime that's convenient for you, it's available for you to book.
That's amazing. And it's global.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's global in nature. That's right.
That was the coolest part, the global search capabilities. Kenny's like, "All right, we're running through a demo. Just pick somewhere you want to have your fake birthday party." And I was like, "Bangladesh? I can literally look in Bangladesh." Like, it's incredible. Sure, that list of places blew my mind.
That's fantastic.
Going back,
I have a question.
No, hit it.
Oh, do you want to jump? You sure?
Go for it.
So I have a question regarding some of the technical limitations of the platform. So it's funny to hear you talk about how the threshold is like 10 rooms. In the airline world, a group airline contract is also 10. Now, why that happens, a little bit of a mystery. We've done a lot of digging on this, and it looks like it's actually like a technical limitation that may go as far back as to like 1967 when Sabre first got made.
Yep. All the GDSs. That's
all
right.
the GDSs, and the fact that it's an edifact and it's a really old like kind of data schema. In the hotel world, do you run into similar like legacy technology issues where there's something that breaks at like 10 rooms? So for us, airlines can't price 10 or 11 rooms because there's this artificial construct inside of the GDS that's 9. And so there has to be add-ons to make groups happen. They had to build they had to build on top of their GDS and their PSS system. Do you guys have similar issues in the hotel space?
Yeah. It's interesting about the 10 rooms, right? And we've done a similar research on it. And truly, we believe it's because it was all about control. That the 10 room limit came to, I don't want to, if I'm a hotel and I'm a 100 room hotel, I don't feel comfortable putting all my 100 rooms out for online sale on a GDS.
Yeah.
I feel good about 10. And then at room 11, I have the option to put my next 10 out. But I'm in control over it. It's super interesting how 10 became the number, but it still exists today. Like even in hotel sales, a group is 10 or more.
Yeah.
And so from the limitation typically exists if I'm a hotel and I'm using a sales and catering system. Oftentimes those are built for things that are 10 or more, where anything less than 10, so 1 to 9 guest rooms, is just all transient booking.
Sure.
And we've learned this a lot. And so not only do we have our own marketplace, the Group360 that you guys looked at earlier today, we also power other private labels. So you can go to hilton.com/meetings, and that's actually the Group360 engine that's powering that.
Yeah.
And we've been able to learn a lot of things from these private label environments, one of which is exactly this, the definition of group. Because we understand group because we're in the travel space, but go talk to any one of your friends this weekend and say, hey, you know what? We have a group of folks going. And in their mind, if we wanted to go, again, back to 3 of us, maybe we want to bring someone else and we want to go golfing this weekend. Great. 4 of us want to go golfing this weekend. I consider us a group because Connor and Kenny, I love y'all, but I probably don't want to pay for your rooms. And so I'm happy to be the travel coordinator. I'm kidding. I totally would. Totally. But I'm going to be the travel coordinator. I want to make sure I consider myself a group because I want group tools. I want the ability that Kenny can pay for his room, Conrad can pay for her room, and I can pay for mine. And so we see a lot of those leads going to hotels, and guess what doesn't happen? They don't get responded to because I'm not responsible for group bookings.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing to combat that, both in our marketplace and our private label environments, is getting different APIs. And so there are technical limitations of certain systems that can't go over 10 and others that only go from 10 and beyond. And so we're going to actually have 2 different integrations depending on what a user enters. I'll touch one API for 1 to 9, and I'll touch another one from 10 and beyond. How a hotel chooses to price those things is completely up to them.
Got it.
But because of that, because there's confusion from a user perspective of what constitutes a group.
Yeah. So I know exactly what you mean. So we had to spawn a whole new business line because of confusion. So
I believe it.
So we started out with this idea very similar to you that we want to make booking 10 or more seats on a plane really easy. And we call that group bookings. And then what happened before the pandemic, probably like 2018-ish, businesses started coming to us and they're like, we heard you do group travel. And we're like, yeah. So our first client ever was Verizon Wireless. And they're like, we heard you do group travel. And we're like, yeah, we do. And they're like, perfect. We have a group of 600. We're like, 600. Awesome. And then
that's a group.
Yeah, that's a group. So then we just sign them up because we're like desperate startup. We'll say yes to anything and then just try to figure it out. And then they're like, okay, perfect. We're all going to book individually. And we're like, shit. We don't really do that, right? So then we did it super messy and we did everything over email and all of our staff almost quit, but we got them booked. And then what happened was, and then like word got out in the meeting planner community that these guys book group airfare. So then we had meeting planners that came to us and they were like, hey, we heard you do groups. And we're like, oh, yeah. So then we did like corporate offsites where you have 100 people coming from 92 different destinations, all going to Miami. And so we did it via email for 3 years. And eventually, just this last year, we made a product. So we had to spin up a whole new product in order to serve these meeting planners that were coming to us. And we're like, we need a lightweight, easy way to book airfare for 100 people. And so because of confusion on like what is a group, we had to build a whole new product. And now we've booked like almost 2,000 flights on this on the first beta. It's like selling.
Awesome. Congratulations.
It was crazy,
awesome.
But it was really just confusion. We just had so many customers that are like, oh, you do groups? Perfect. Here's my group of 97. Oh, you do groups? Here's my group of 1,100. And then we had to make a whole new thing. And it is funny how the vernacular and customer expectations will take you down totally different routes for your business, and you just have to kind of respond to it.
No, you're exactly right. Well, congrats to you. That's again, airlines is a whole different level of complexity than hotels. I mean,
it's the worst, honestly. We really look at you guys as like a really good model of first building a good product and then just like proving it out in the market, because you guys were live for a few years before, you know, the whole Marriott and Hilton thing happened. So we really look at you guys as like building out a model of like build something that customers really love, and then kind of work towards the airlines, because the airlines are tough to deal with.
Fickle.
Yeah. Any big enterprise, right? I mean, just any big enterprise.
Yeah. And like groups are always low on the totem pole, right? Because, you know, they have their, like the Southwest meltdown, right? That just pushed groups even lower. They got a lot to figure out before groups. So, it's very, very interesting. I had one question. In terms of meeting planners, do you guys have third-party meeting planners use your platform, or do those people kind of like use other products?
Right now, all the rates that we receive from hotels, both in direct booking and the RP process, are net non-commissionable.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So those folks, like they kind of are kind of often and using their own products, and probably a lot doing kind of more of like the old school way, because there's a lot of like startups now that are in the meeting planning space. So I would imagine that because it's net non-commissionable, they have to kind of go another way for the time being.
A little bit, but there's also a big advantage, right? For the smaller meetings and events where there's not a lot of commission to be had, right? If you're a 10-room group for 1 or 2 nights, right, the commission is super small. The advantage might just be getting time back. That again, on Saturday morning, sipping my cup of coffee or drinking my Bloody Mary, I can go ahead and book this group and be done, and not have to wait for Monday morning and to talk to a salesperson. And so there's an advantage of just the time savings, although there's no commission currently that's tied to that. There's just the time savings that could exist.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just for the listeners, I'm going to give a little fact. And I got this fact because I signed up for a demo on Groups360. And then I got an email, and the email was perfectly written with a lot of good information. So it said, the GroupSync marketplace showcases 200,000 RFP connected hotels worldwide. Nuts. With over 7,000 available for instant booking. So that's over 1 million rooms and event space options ready for instant booking now. Right? That's crazy.
That's right.
That's amazing. In an ideal world, what does Groups360 look like 5 years from now?
5 years from now. So we've been hyper-focused on the supply side and on the planner/organizer side. We're going to continue that march, right? So kind of ran again back to a year from now. I hope I'm going to tell you my favorite time is right now. And I hope that, and I know that 7,000 number is going to be increasing. We've got a lot of really fun announcements we're going to have here in the next few weeks. So we'll be sure to get that your way.
Cool. Yes.
And we're going to continue to expand that inventory, right? Because we want the planner experience to have enough inventory on the shelf to be able to visualize a true good marketplace. But when we look forward to the next 5 years, it's really going to that third leg of the stool, which is that attendee experience. What does that look like? How can I personalize that for them? So all of a sudden, I'm the meeting organizer. I'll go back to the soccer mom and soccer dad. I booked this group at a beautiful Marriott property. It's confirmed. What do I do now? Like, how do I get that attendee to actually consume that room that I just booked? And so we already have, and we acquired a company back in 2020. We have a tool that allows that attendee experience that planner, that parent can say, hey, moms, dads, hey, you know what? Click this link. Go ahead and book your room. You want to go in earlier, stay later? I don't care. Click that link. You can do it there. Put your credit card in. You're all set. We have that today. You want to go more steps down that path, though, because now that I know you, the consumer, of where you're going, I know when you're coming in and coming out. Guess what else I can do now? Just tell me where you're coming from. Let's go ahead and book your airfare while you're here. Oh, hey, while we're booking your airfare, hey, do you want to go ahead and book some of your meals while you're in town? Do you want to go ahead and book any rental cars? So how do I make it super hyper personal for that attendee to have that great experience? Because at the end of the day, they're the ones paying the bills to the hotels, to the planner. Like, we need those attendees to be there and have a great experience, because that's the key part of the actual meetings and events experience, is that individual attendee. And so in 5 years from now, our focus, really starting even now, is getting there, and we're going to have a whole lot more that we'll offer to them within the next 5 years.
That's super cool. And so you guys started in Nashville, expanded to London, is that correct? And then Singapore?
That's right.
How'd you guys choose? I mean, London and Singapore are two perfectly fine places to hold up, but how'd you guys choose London and Singapore?
Some of those were via acquisition, and some of those were just having the people in the right spot. I mean, again, we wanted to have a presence in APAC and EMEA, and London and Singapore were truly some of the better spots for us to be able to have those offices. So, and if you're ever traveling out that way, obviously, Conor, your birthday party is going to be epic next year. So, I mean, yeah, Bangladesh, maybe Singapore, let us know. I mean, we'll have a spot for you wherever you head to.
Oh my gosh, a punk rock party in London. I mean, Kenny's going to Singapore. Kenny's going to Singapore like what, in like a week?
I'm going to Singapore in 2 weeks for Aviation Festival. So,
get out.
Yeah. We went once before the pandemic. We were actually in the Singapore Airlines accelerator in February, and then COVID happened right as we were about to do some pretty cool stuff. So we're going to go swing out to Singapore and see if we can make some of those connections, because we were thinking about opening an office in Asia as well, because we had a lot of interest in group solutions from the Asian airlines. And Eric and I were like, are we going to have to like live half of our life in Singapore and America? And we were trying to like divvy up over like, okay, I'll do 3 months here, you do 3 months there. So we're going to go kind of, now that Asia's reopening, we're going to go kind of see what's going on over there again. Speaking of COVID, I hate to go back and ask the travel COVID question, but being groups and travel during COVID, it sucked, right?
Yeah, it wasn't ideal, but it was interesting, right? So obviously, we unfortunately had to let go of some great salespeople along that way, but we actually ended up expanding quite a bit during COVID.
Oh, no way.
And the whole reason was, think about what happened. The whole world came to a stop, but hotels all of a sudden were having trouble getting staff coming back.
Yeah.
And planners were also expecting a change, right? Nobody was expecting to go out of the pandemic the same way we went into the pandemic. And we got a lot of commercial interest about how do we get this thing up and going, because we want to have another avenue. If we're going to bring salespeople back on property or salespeople for my hotel, the smaller meetings and events are the ones that are, they take, I mean, I've sold small groups, I've sold mega conventions. The small ones typically take almost as much time as the 5,000 person convention. It sounds crazy, but any hotel salesperson can attest that is a true statement.
It's 100% true. Yeah.
And so how can we make it a great experience for the consumer and give them the trust and confidence to book that smaller meeting online? And so COVID ended up being a positive thing overall for the business. Again, horrible of what happened with everything.
Sure.
But for us, it ended up being, in the end, a positive thing in retrospect, because it made everyone go back to a reset and say, what does it look like now? And it truly just brought a lot of commercial interest to the instant booking part of what we do.
For those people listening that heard what you just said about how booking a meeting for 8 can be just as crazy as 500, is the reason because of the RFP process? Is it because you have to call and you have to, is that like, why?
It's that part, and it's the similar contracting process. I mean, just the back and forth of people who just want to negotiate things. And that's where we're focused on, how do I make sure that Conor Ann at IBM, you have your MSA, your master service agreement with the hotel that you pre-negotiated with a big brand. They want to know, if I book online, I still get to use that thing, that MSA, when I go and book online. And so it's that level of detail that we have to take into account to make sure that Conner Ann's going to book that group and not feel that they got to call Kenny Monday morning at the hotel and try to get that deal done, that they can just do it completely online.
Kenny,
but yes, a lot of it is the
calls.
RP process. A lot of it's just the contract. No, we would never screen your call.
Kenny might screen my call. You would never screen my call.
No.
Me, no. I want to talk tech because you've definitely heard of Chat GPT in the world you're in. Or I guess you don't have to be in
Obviously.
tech to know what that is now. We've been talking a lot lately about AI on the podcast here, and you guys just digitized group travel. So what I want to know is, with all this rise in AI, like, what is next?
It's interesting. This whole Chat GPT thing is super interesting, right? They
Crazy.
They obviously worked on it for a while, came out in November. And it's almost like you guys are super young, but I remember when the internet was coming out and it was like this thing that people just couldn't understand what was happening. And there were people, and just like what's going on with Chat GPT, it's the best thing ever. It's going to save businesses millions. It's going to make people more efficient. Then there's other people who are saying the Terminator is going to be here tomorrow and the world's going to end because of this. Like,
that's me.
There's literally both sides of it. And it's still hyper new, right? There's a lot of benefits to it, but obviously we've all done startup technologies before, right? There's a lot to be fixed still. However, you can't say it's not super exciting of what we're seeing and what the capabilities can be going into the future. I mean, when we think about AI, it goes back to, again, that consumer experience, right? If I'm Kenny and I like X, Y, and Z brand, and I know I've traveled to these destinations before, and I'm a corporate group, I want to know, our algorithm should be smart enough to pick up not only what Kenny has done before, but also what Conner Ann, who does something similar, to recommend, hey, you know what, you may not have thought about Bangladesh for this meeting, but this may be a great option for you because other people who look and act like you also thought about this. Yeah. So we are super excited about what this is going to come. But it's really in early stages right now. But I think it's going to change the world, and it's just going to take time, just like everything else has been. But it's going to be interesting to watch how this all comes to fruition.
I was messing around with it the other day, and I think I was copying something that I heard. So this is not original, but I asked Chat GPT I said, hey, I have a meeting in Miami and I need a venue that sits over 5,000 people. Can you list out the top venues? And it actually returned me 6. I believe it was like 6 or 9. And I was like, that's actually pretty cool. And it just listed them out. I also played around with asking like hotel room nights, like what's the average cost in a city. It doesn't do as well because, as you know, there's a lot of like parameters. But if you put in enough data, it did cite some like weird website I've never heard of. And it was like, based on this website, for New York City, it's X. And I was like, it's not really there yet, right? It needs a lot more service.
It's starting.
It's just starting. But it was very interesting that I feel like that there's going to be companies like you guys are probably well positioned to do this, or there could be someone else that comes that starts to, if the economics work out, because I would assume that training a model is like crazy expensive, but I would assume that there's going to be someone that takes a shot at making a business as like travel data as a service, and they start to feed models into it. So you can ask it kind of run of the mill questions like that. And you become the trainer of the technology because it's only as good as what it's trained on. So I was interested to see if do you guys have any plans to put it in your product, or is it doing some stuff under the covers? Any kind of, we keep looking at it, but we're like, we don't know if it makes sense for us just yet.
Yeah, we're in the same boat, Kenny. We're monitoring it, but nothing yet, right? It's early. But obviously, we're very early adapters on new type of tech, but just nothing at this point in time that we've seen that's like, okay, it can solve this specific problem. We just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter the other day, where I'm getting more and more of my news. I don't know what this says about me, but someone tweeted that half of the companies in Y Combinator are some derivative of some AI tool, and they're all building on top of Chat GPT or one of those. So could Chat GPT not just offer that service too. I mean, if you're just building on top of the AI, there's nothing really like defensible outside of brand and stuff there. So I'm like you, I kind of want to see how it shakes out first and let kind of the gold rush happen and people, survive and thrive or die, and then kind of see what happens and what shakes out.
Yeah, I agree. But we're here. Like, we're in the Jetsons world, minus the flying cars, but we're here. I mean,
flying cars are kind of those eVTOLs that eVTOLs. I
True.
think that's how you pronounce them.
Yeah, what is that though? Is that just crazy. A helicopter? It's like, is this an electric helicopter? Or people are like, it's going to change everything. I was like, bro, that looks like a helicopter. I mean, just because it's ran on a big battery. Pretty sure that's a helicopter.
The videos online of people like in business suits flying them to work. I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see that in our lifetime. I hope so. I really want it, but yeah, that and a hoverboard would be.
I really want one.
Real hoverboards.
Oh, the real hoverboard.
Real hoverboard, not like the fake ones that they call a hoverboard. Like the ones like I'm in Back to the Future on the hoverboard.
I want to levitate. Yeah. Like,
exactly.
Let me levitate. I don't want to be tethered to earth.
No, not at all. Come on.
If I ain't levitating, I don't want it. Oh, that's funny.
That's a perfect quote. Yeah. Add that to your LinkedIn.
You quote me on that. Well, Kenny, I kind of ran through all of my questions. Do you have any more questions for Tim before I ask him the signature Travel Nerds question?
No, thank you so much, Tim, for your time. This has been awesome. And we're super big fans and wish you guys all the success. And Connor does have a closing question, so go ahead and hit it.
Yes. Okay, here we go. I mean, you're on Travel Nerds. So what I want to know, what do you nerd out about?
I mean, if you saw my freshman year of high school picture, you'd see I was a huge nerd and still am a huge nerd. Just don't have the big glasses like I did. What I nerd out about the most, I'm a huge Apple geek. I think within my view right now, I see like 7 Apple products.
All right, what do you got? Name them.
I was like, that's Kenny.
AirPods, iPads, iPhones. I thought I was going to use these today, but I didn't. The AirPod Maxes. I have 3 versions of headphones from them with the Beats.
I have the same.
Because you need those to run. I need those to run, these to do conversations with, and these for planes. Obviously.
You guys are ridiculous. No, you don't.
I'm just like you. So, Tim, I have the AirPods, I have AirPod Pros and AirPod Max, and I'm like you. The plane, the Maxes have to go on, right? And then, now, what's your computer situation like? Are you
Max.
All right, but do you have? I want to see if I've been one-upped.
Are you about to brag right now?
No. I think Tim may have me, but I think that I may own the most Apple computers in my house. But I want to see if someone.
No, I only have. I have the MacBook Pro that I have for work here. So this is an M2 MacBook Pro, 13-inch.
Is it sweet?
It is nice. It's about the touch bar though, so it's the 13. I did finally upgrade. Kenny, you'd be proud of me. I've had the same MacBook Pro home computer since 2016. Connor, Ann, you asked me a nerdy question, and we're going to give you nerdy answers.
I was just thinking I am less nerdy than these two.
Yeah.
So I have the same thing. I have the 2017. I have. Back when I had to work in an office, I bought a computer for my house. I have the 27-inch iMac, and I bought one for the office and one for home. And then when we closed the office, now I have my office has both of them sitting there, but they're getting a little slow, right? So then I just upgraded to the Mac Studio. So if you don't have this yet,
you're over. See, you trump me.
I know he's just bougie as hell. You should see this thing too.
No, I think honestly, like Tim Cook has like cast a spell over me, and he takes all my money like every 3 months. He just reaches into my checking account, just
in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm just glad. I used to. We're all Orlando people. I remember at Millennia, I used to stand in line for the iPhones coming out, and then thankfully, I was young, single, no kids. Like, sure, we can wake up and do those things. I just think Tim Cook, everything's available online and I can just buy it and they ship it to my house now. Like Tim Cook, if you're listening today, thank you so much. I'm sure he's listening.
Tim,
I'm sure he's listening.
Huge fan. Huge fan.
Thanks for tuning in, Tim.
Yeah, I think Connor may have met Tim in Louisiana. She used to live there. Tim would go and eat there. So Connor and Tim go way back. For Apple, are you getting the AR glasses when they come out?
Day one.
I'm
Absolutely.
in too. I don't even give a shit how much that they cost, to be honest. Like,
no. Everyone's like, so are you going to buy the Apple car when it comes out? I'm like, of course I'll buy the Apple car when it comes out. If they do it, sure. I mean, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Apple car. What are these? What are these glasses?
Have you? Oh my God, Connor.
I don't know if we have enough time for this.
We don't have time for this. Yeah.
People have tuned out already.
Yeah, people have tuned out. They're like, these are just two weirdos talking about how much money they've given Apple.
Correct. All the Android people left 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So good. Tim, you are an absolute delight. Thank you so much for letting me just ask you a million questions, and so informative, so exciting about what's happening at Groups360. And I'm really excited to, who knows what'll happen in 5 years, but I'll be following along.
Awesome. Well, Connor and Kenny, thank you all for having me on today. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you guys again soon.
Later, nerds.
Bye.